Now we'd like to start the discussion and the Q&A. From myself, I would like to pose some basic questions to two speakers, and after their answers, we would like to open up the floor for Q&A, including the online participants. So to two presentations. First of all, Takeuchi-san talked about the very basic essence of AI and how we can utilize it into the policy simulation. He gave us the overall picture. And Mr. Tim Hobbs went into some specifics, talking about the foresight software the company has developed and what kind of opportunities that those new tools can provide. So both presentations were very insightful, very efficient, and a scenario development is now possible. And for the execution of simulation, you can repeat it over and over again in a very efficient and precise manner. You can also get the simulation results. In our policy simulation office, we conduct those simulations as facilitators and conduct the scenario exercise. And it seems that we have a threat from AI that they might take away our jobs. Well, I'd like to pose one question to each of the two speakers. First of all, this is a question for Takeuchi-san. Mr. Takeuchi, for policy simulation, you said you talked about what AI can do for the policy simulation analysis mainly. And on the other hand, Mr. Tim Hobbs talked mainly about the AI simulation for the purpose of education of leaders. That's my understanding. At the last part of Mr. Tim Hobbs' presentation, he suggested that the use of these Gen AI for policy simulation, the risks exist in this. For example, if we use big data, well, there are some fake news sometimes in the public information, and also there are some intentional data poisoning, and false information may be injected into the simulation, which might result into wrong results, analysis result. Or in a military organization like ours, if we are to conduct an AI simulation like this, information protection is another challenge. So for such risks, as we try to utilize AI, the kind of risks that the Takeuchi-san is thinking about, and the actions we can take to prevent those AI risks. If you could talk about those, that would be great, Mr. Takeuchi. And next is the question to Mr. Tim Hobbs. There are different types of policy simulations, and you talked about how AI can change them. And in that sense, you mentioned the concept accessibility. In our organization, NIDS, we also do the policy simulation, and we have to have a great level of expertise. Without using outside experts, if we can do the analysis and the scenario development, that would be ideal. However, there is a dilemma in this situation. For example, the analysis result, for example, can be suggested by AI, but in the simulation process, how important each point is may require the expert's input. And especially when there is a black box situation, without the experts, especially external experts, to make a judgment, there is a risk that we might misinterpret some of the points. Well, there may be, you talked about some of the ways to hedge those different types of risks. As we think about risk hedging, a company like yours, vendor of those simulations, and also the users of those simulations like us, including people like us, facilitators, and also people who use those AI tools for educations. So for vendors, users, and experts, what would be the ideal roles and responsibilities compared with the past practices? So how we can divide the roles and responsibilities when we think about the AI policy simulation. So if each one of you could give us a 2 to 3 minutes response, that would be great. Thank you for the question. You asked about the risks of using AI. That's my understanding. There is a word, hallucination. You may have heard about this. AI may tell you a lie in a way that sounds like a truth. Earlier, I mentioned a little bit about this. AI can understand the context of a sentence and then can choose the next word which has the highest probability. Given these characteristics, AI can tell a lie in a way that might sound as truth. It is just natural AI can do that if you think about the characteristics of AI. So it's important for human beings to understand these characteristics and give directions and supervise AI. Humans also tell lies. So we should assume that the AI can sometimes do that as we try to utilize and interact with AI. The other point is about the treatment of confidential information. This is very important. This time, the simulation content, well, that was a hypothetical simulation. How can we make sure that the information does not go out to the outside and for the usage for learning? We are trying that at the moment, but this is the output by AI. It is the treatment of the computation.
So you should be able to handle information so that if you just look at the output of a certain calculation, you would not know the meaning of that information. And the methods to prevent information leakage to the outside is being researched. So to take an approach that prevents information from leaking is something that needs to be done. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Tim Hobbs could respond to the earlier question.
Thanks, Masaaki. So you asked about roles and responsibilities and what role the vendor, the user, and the facilitator have. I think at Capital Shield, we're viewing vendors like ourselves at Capital Shield as technology partners. So we provide the platform and we provide the tools that facilitators need to design, deploy, and debrief an exercise. So in that sense, the facilitators are the creators of the exercises. They design them, they deploy them, they debrief them. They still maintain that their subject matter expertise in terms of adjudication and facilitation. I think the AI in our platform, at least, is a helpful tool that can allow you to have a much wider aperture, a much wider freedom of maneuver when it comes to what is possible in a simulation. Without, as I said in the speech, increasing that manpower and time required to achieve that level of simulation. And then obviously users in our simulation, we've designed our platform to be very user-centric. So users first, they're ultimately the beneficiaries of our platform. They're the ones learning the lessons. And so it's all designed around user experience and user interface. You talked about accessibility. And you said, some people might lose their jobs. No one's losing their jobs, Masaaki, I don't think. I think human judgment is remaining very central to this discipline. I think, as I said, AI will just give you additional tools and allow you to create a new kind of simulation that more reflects today's realities.
Mr. Tim Hobbs, thank you very much. So now I open the session to the floor and to the online listeners. So NDWC, Hong-san has, from NDWC, Mr. Hong has a comment and a question. So please, and then after that, Mr. Oliver Barton, please.
Thank you very much for your very interesting and informative briefs. Within the human psychology, there is something called the uncanny valley. This is where humans feel uncomfortable around robots that are very realistic because humans have this understanding that there's something not quite right. And I wonder if you have experienced any of that uncanny valley when it comes to AI, that humans, if they know they are in an AI environment, that they are very skeptical of what they are receiving and how that has an impact on gameplay. And secondly, I think an issue that will come up at some point is accountability of the games that are produced and the results that come out of games, especially if it's AI generated. For example, if a self-driving car crashes and kills someone, who is responsible? The driver is no longer responsible, but is it the software? But how do we deal with accountability of the decisions that come out of AI-based war games? So those two issues, I'll leave that up to you. Thank you.
I'm happy to go first.
Yes, please do respond.
We've had a wide range of reactions to the various games that we've run on Foresight. We've encountered everything from AI skeptics, but I have to tell you, most people have just been kind of wowed and amazed by some of the capabilities that the AI agents within our simulation platform have. So, for example, I encourage you to come and have a look at our demonstration later today. Our AI agents can actually call and talk to you in a really realistic voice. And you can have a conversation with them to talk to them about what they know about a situation. And I think after the sort of initial sort of reaction of, oh, I'm talking to a robot, I think what it actually does is create a deeper level of immersion. And as people start getting into the subject matter and start talking, substantively with the AI agents about the crisis that's unfolding, and they're credibly responding, I think it creates that deeper level of immersion, and sort of that uncanny valley you mentioned is sort of goes away. To your second point about accountability, I think it's incredibly important. And one of the things that we're doing inside our scenario generation capability is having an auditability trail. So you're able to look at where the AI, how the AI made certain decisions when it generated a scenario. We're not proposing that you would deploy a fully AI-generated scenario without some level of quality control. So it comes back to that human judgment being central to deploying simulations. We still need a human in the loop there to make sure that the simulation makes sense. But one of the things we're investing in is memory and sort of contextual preferences. So over time, the simulation scenario editor that we have in our system will get to understand your preferences, the scenarios you like to run, how you like to set them up. We're experimenting with including sort of a constitution type document at the beginning of a scenario, which sets the game rules and expectations and provides some clear instructions to AI agents within the scenario. And that, I think, provides a level of comfort to people who might be skeptical. But again, it comes back to that auditability, making sure you can understand how the AI came to their position, what assumptions they've made, and we've built that into the platform from the ground up.
Takeuchi-san, please. So previously, one of my subordinates was talking, and the response was too good. I thought, and I was talking to my subordinate, and his answer was too good, and I found that he used ChatGPT to respond. If you talk to AI, I feel a little bit uncomfortable, and the current AI just behaves similar to humans, and it's no problem if you understand that and communicate. But it's a separate thing. It's not the same as a human. The way they structure a conversation, the human-like qualities, still areas of improvement.
When it comes to the division of roles and responsibilities, of course, accountability still lies with human beings. At the moment, AI has not developed that much yet. Like autonomous driving, if you take responsibility for the lives of human, that's a different layer. AI still is an assistance tool today to help human beings make decisions. And humans still have the accountability and responsibility for the treatment of data. I think that's what we have to do today. Thank you very much. I'd like to go back to questions. Oliver-san from DSTL, please.
Thank you ever so much. I thought that was absolutely fascinating, extremely thought-provoking. Thank you. And I can see that the implications are potentially really quite profound, both for analytical and experiential games. My questions are mainly about the application to analytical games. You already spoke about the potential value generative AI could have for repetition, one of the key principles of analytical wargaming, if only to ensure against your very labour-intensive, labour of love wargame hasn't accidentally looked at an edge case. So I'm curious to understand how well you feel this current generation of AIs could take the data from an otherwise entirely human-played game, perhaps like the one we're going to play tomorrow, and then replay that game with AI agents. And how well do you think this current crop of AIs could do that in a transparent, repeatable fashion that allows for retrospective analysis and comparison with human-played games in a way that guards against a tendency of AI to provide you with a very convincing but actually largely ex-post hoc rationalization of decision-making? The reason I ask that is because the games we tend to run are ones that have a military element but are predominantly about human decision-making and perceptions, the things that AIs, at least historically, have coped with less well, but can be very convincing at the same time. So I'm really curious to understand how you see that working and the technology maturing. Second, I'm really curious to hear how you go about validating the results of AI-enabled games, especially when you're looking at scenarios when there are no real-world analogues against which you can compare, and potentially you, through this repetition of games, are generating an enormous training data set for the LLM that is entirely fictional. And finally, how do you guard against biases in that training data set, then leading to convincing hallucinations that then pollute the LLM forevermore? Thank you.
Oliver-san gave us the 3 questions. For each one of them, I would like please respond as much as you can. Takeuchi-san first, please. So could you rephrase the questions as well? The first point is, in my understanding, for humans, the case that the human beings play the game, and in the case that the human execute the simulation, what is the difference in terms of transparency and so forth? How can you make sure those aspects? May I start first? Yes. At this moment, I showed you previously the process of the simulation, how AI has a process of thinking and how AI can come up with the results. One by one, we can check the sequence. That's something we have to do. That would be the practical way. On the other hand, the overall outcome, if you look at the outcome after many repetitions, it seems that AI's outcome is getting closer and closer to the outcome or decision made by human beings. What I'm interested today is that what it makes AI's unique results unique. sometimes we get unique results from AI. If you look into those details, for example, in the previous example, because of this action by this country, the situation became much better. If that kind of thing is seen, at the end of the day, the decision should be made by the humans. Well, in the game, sometimes AI may make the decision, but that is purely within the game. But in reality, at the end of the day, the decisions should be made and controlled by human beings. Thank you. Tim-san, please.
Thank you, Masaaki-san. Thanks for the question. So foresight, as it stands, is more of a experiential learning capability. And on our technology roadmap, we fully intend to explore analytical games. But as it stands, it's experiential learning. One of the things we're building out is Hindsight. So Foresight's our sort of immersive simulation platform. Hindsight is our data analytics layer that sits underneath. So that, as you alluded to, is capturing a lot of information about the kinds of communications and interactions that participants are having over the course of the exercise. It's looking at the decisions they're making, the timelines, what information they had access to. We're even looking at having organisations potentially being able to upload their crisis management plan, and we can assess response, against that document. That's something we're looking at. In terms of validating the responses from the AI, one of the things that we're experimenting with at the moment is what we call an AI orchestrator. So there's one central brain, if you like, that's managing all these different agents underneath it. And that orchestrator would have access to a quality control agent, which would have a specific set of rules and guardrails to tackle things like the biases and validating responses that you spoke to. That's still in development. It is an evolving capability. I don't think we'd have too much confidence in it at this point, given where some of the AI agentic framework is at. But I've seen over the last 6 months it has improved significantly in some of the exercises that we've deployed. In my view, it's only going to get better and better.
Thank you for that. So let's take another question. The person raising their hand, please. Thank you for the precious talks. 2 questions. First, so recently, multi-domain approach is said to be required to think about military issues. So to input that and to simulate, I would imagine that's possible, the multi-domain approach. But when you analyze the result output, is there output from AI that's not just text, that's visual? Because without that, it would be difficult for humans to analyze and evaluate. So assuming that it's a multi-domain, how effectively can you utilize simulation from a multi-domain perspective? And the second question is about hallucination. Personally, so the AI agent that's been defined as player. So there's this part about the selection of that, and also about the scenario generation. I think there's risk and possibilities. So Takeuchi-san earlier talked about the unique results emerging from AI. On the other hand, though, I personally have been using these systems, and sometimes I get results that are unrealistic. That doesn't happen. So perhaps what are the choice? So I think you have to define what are the possible choices in a particular military situations. So how to balance those two? And I think you can use AI to generate scenarios. My background is economy and finance. So financial related risk simulation is what I want to talk about. So how to expect unexpected risks. That's often discussed. And I think AI can be very useful for that. If you have any ideas about that, please share. Thank you for the questions. Maybe have Takeuchi-san, please, first to respond. So in finance, you talked about doing simulations in finance, and there's also scenario planning in the consulting business. So there are multiple risk factors. You evaluate that, and ultimately you narrow down to 2 risk factors, and you assume the worst case scenario for the company. And for that worst case scenario, how to respond is what you would consider in this scenario planning approach methodology. So this is a methodology assuming that it will be done by humans. And as you were saying, by utilizing AI, narrowing down to the 2 options, that part can be eliminated, and you can consider more various options. I think that's one benefit of using AI. On the other hand, though, I mean, there could be outcomes that it's very apparent that that would never happen. I mean, I agree that sometimes that happens. And precisely because that is the case, humans should make the final decisions. So I absolutely do not believe that the AI can completely replace humans. It's human first, and supplementary support from AI to broaden the choices and also to speed up the process. For that, AI has become already very useful. Mr. Tim Hobbs, please.
So you asked about multi-domain simulations and exercises and whether we can simulate non-text outputs. So Foresight allows us to simulate a range of different outputs. Firstly, maps. So obviously we have a geospatial dimension, and we can look at where assets are placed from a strategic level: land, air, sea, space, all the various domains. We've also invested in simulating a number of non-kinetic sort of cyber effects, so ransomware attacks, hacks, things like this, which are simulated as part of our platform. We also distribute information via social media, tweets, and that's a combination of text and photos. We have news videos, and we're experimenting with a few tools that will allow us to essentially collect B-roll footage from the internet, TV news footage, and mash that together in video injects for participants. So one of the simulations that we've run in Australia recently for, again, a bushfire kind of situation, we had a live TV news desk. So it was manned by a real journalist, a hostile journalist who was asking questions on behalf of the community. And the participants were expected to sit in front of a camera and explain their decisions. Obviously, today, in our world, media is an incredibly important part of how leaders communicate and interact with the public. So strategic communications form an essential element of our exercises that we run. And that's a service that we offer on the side. To your second point about hallucination, I think I agree with Kai. We really need to make sure there's a specialist subject matter expert human in the loop, making sure those hallucinations do not occur. My view is that as AI gets used more often, those hallucinations will decrease and they'll become less noticeable. But I think that's remains to be seen. So for now, keep humans in the loop.
Thank you for that. It's close to closing time, so we like to end the questions. But if there is anyone with a very urgent, short question, are we good? Okay. Then we'd like to end session 1.